Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The risk in the Red Sea continues to rise. Houthis are on the war path. They're attacking ships. Yesterday, we told you about a 10-nation coalition to counter them. India is not part of that group. But India feels the threat too. It has deployed another warship off Yemen. Prime Minister Modi has spoken to Netanyahu. We'll tell you what the plan is and how this conflict will hurt India. In the other war, Vladimir Putin says he's ready to talk to Ukraine and the West. Is he looking to end the war finally, and why now? We'll discuss that. In the US, a court has disqualified Donald Trump for contesting the election. We'll tell you what this means. In Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif's outreach to India continues. Is this a new strategy? How should Delhi see it? The story of the rise and fall of Toshiba, the Japanese electronics giant, is off the stock market. Now, artificial intelligence can predict your death, among other things, and a company is offering bonuses to employees who run every day. How should you see this? We'll discuss all this and more. The headlines first. Will there be another temporary truce in Gaza? Ismail Haniyeh, the Qatar-based Hamas chief, is in Egypt for talks. Israeli president has said his country is ready for another pause. In November, Qatar, backed by Egypt and the US, helped broker a week-long truce. Malaysia bans all Israeli-flagged cargo ships from docking at its ports. Kuala Lumpur says this is in response to Israel's offensive in Gaza. Muslim-majority Malaysia does not recognize Israel but maintains ties with Hamas. The Democratic Republic of Congo votes to elect its new president. The government declares a bank holiday, closes the borders and suspends domestic flights. The incumbent president is up against a fragmented opposition. The DRC is one of the poorest countries in the world. Hospital doctors in England start their longest strike yet over pay. Junior doctors are on a 72-hour walkout. This will be followed by a 6-day strike from the 3rd of January. The state-funded National Health Service warns thousands of appointments could be postponed or cancelled. Ryanair wins the European Union court fight. A court annuls approval of billions of dollars in state aid to Air France KLM. The money was given in 2020 during the pandemic when COVID grounded flights. Ryanair, which is Europe's largest low-cost airline, had challenged the decision, calling it unfair. And the Russian Football Association votes against leaving UEFA for the Asian Confederation. The European body had banned it because of the Ukraine war. The ban prevented Russia from taking part in the Euro 2024 qualifiers. The war in West Asia has two fronts now. One is obviously Gaza, the other is the Red Sea. It's the busiest route between Asia and Europe, and right now it is a danger zone. Yemen's Houthi rebels are attacking commercial ships. Many companies have started avoiding it. They're sailing all the way around Africa. Yesterday, we told you why this is bad for global trade. Tonight, we're looking at India. Is India worried about the Houthi threat? How much trade is at stake? And what is New Delhi doing about it? To answer the first question, yes, New Delhi is worried about the Red Sea situation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Israel's Prime Minister on Tuesday. Look at his statement afterwards. This is what he said, and I'm quoting, had a productive exchange of views on Israel-Hamas conflict, including shared concerns for the safety of maritime traffic. So there are concerns. And what is New Delhi doing about it? Deploying warships. The Indian Navy already had one warship in the region. It's called the INS Kochi. But now a second warship has been sent, the INS Kolkata. And where will they operate? Reports say off the coast of Aden. Let's look at the map. Aden is located on the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. It's a Yemeni port city. From Aden, you can control Red Sea trade. So that is India's focus. On paper, this is not about the Houthis, it's about Red Sea pirates. But the timing is key here. India's deployments coincide with the new Red Sea coalition. 10 countries have joined forces. They will defend ships against the Houthis. India is not part of that coalition, yet New Delhi is sending warships. In fact, the Navy is already part of the action. Last week, a commercial ship was hijacked in the Red Sea. It was a Malta-flagged vessel. The Indian Navy immediately sprung to action. It deployed a maritime patrol aircraft, kept monitoring the crew, even evacuated one injured soldier. Basically, India was the first responder here. In this case, the Houthis were not responsible. It was likely Somali pirates. They've seen the chaos caused by the Houthis, so they perhaps thought, let's join in. Now let's come to the final question. What's at stake for India? As you know, the Red Sea leads into the Suez Canal. It's a key transit point for India. In 2021, India's trade via the Suez Canal was worth $200 billion, both export and import. And what is India's total foreign trade? Around $1 trillion, meaning 20% of India's trade is via the Suez Canal. So 20% of India's trade is at stake. There are two major worries. Number one is oil. India now has two major suppliers, West Asia and Russia. The West Asian oil is shipped via the Persian Gulf, so no problems there. But most of the Russian oil comes via the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. That's 40% of India's total imports, around 1.7 million barrels. If those ships are targeted or rerouted, costs will rise. That's worry number one. And here's number two, freight costs. When you transport goods, you must pay for the ship. And those payments are rising. Some Indian industry experts are worried. They say shipping costs could rise by up to 40%, meaning Indian exports will become more expensive. And no country likes to import expensive goods. So India is right to be worried about these Red Sea events. At the same time, India has certain advantages, things that Western countries do not have. For starters, New Delhi is not involved in the Yemeni civil war. In fact, India and Yemen have long been partners. Around 200,000 people of Indian origin live in Yemen. Plus, New Delhi has close ties with Iran, the godfather of the Houthis. So India can pull some strings there in Tehran. Maybe get the Houthis to ease off their ships. Of course, these are not sustainable options. The best option would be to end the war. And that's something that India has already demanded at the United Nations General Assembly. $665. That's how many days Russia and Ukraine have been at war. In this time, we've seen the momentum swing. First, a Russian blitzkrieg, then a Ukrainian counteroffensive, then a stalemate, and now another Russian onslaught. It is clear that Moscow has the edge, which is why Vladimir Putin's latest comments have raised eyebrows. Yesterday, Putin had two key meetings. One was with soldiers who fought in Ukraine. He awarded them Russia's Gold Star. It's their top military honor. Then Putin met with his top military aides and he told them he's ready to negotiate with Ukraine and the West. But on one condition. Listen in.
We won't interfere, but we won't give up our territory. This is what everyone in Ukraine, Europe, and the USA, everyone who is aggressive towards Russia, should understand. If they want to negotiate, let them negotiate. We will only do it based on our interests.
So that's Putin's message. We will talk, but on our terms. The question is why? After all, Putin has a battlefield advantage now. So why is he eyeing a political settlement? Maybe he wants to negotiate from a position of strength. Maybe he fears that the momentum will swing again. Or maybe he knows that the West will turn him down anyway, in which case there is nothing to lose. The Kremlin has now clarified Putin's remarks. They say there is no basis for talks now. Apparently the conditions are not good. Then why did Putin offer negotiations? Well, there's no point speculating. Instead, let's put his comments in context. What is the state of this war? Is there a peace deal on the table? And is the West willing to talk? Let's look at the battlefield first. Russia controls more than 17% of Ukraine's land. This year, Kiev launched a counteroffensive to take back some of it. But that operation failed. Look at how one soldier described it, and I'm quoting, "As we like to say in the army, the plan was good on paper, but we forgot about the trenches." So Ukraine is stuck. Meanwhile, Russia is putting more men on the ground. It's being called a relentless assault. Also, the airstrikes continue. Russia has launched 5 aerial raids this month. The latest was on Tuesday. 19 drones targeted Kiev, Odessa and Kherson. The Kharkiv region was hit by 2 missiles and casualties. Ukraine says none. But these air raids are not just about damage. It's also about psychology. It's about turning Ukrainians against their leadership. And looks like it is working. A new opinion poll has been published in Ukraine. It looks at public trust. 62% people have trust in Volodymyr Zelensky, their president. I know it sounds like a lot. Most Western leaders are stuck below 50, so 62% should be good. But in the month of December last year, Zelensky polled much higher, close to 84%. So in 1 year, his ratings have dropped by 22%, which is a huge drop. At the same time, trust in the army is unshaken. 96% Ukrainians trust the military. 88% trust the commander-in-chief, the same man who said that the war is at a stalemate. So what is Zelensky doing? On Tuesday, he organized a year-end press conference. I guess it's the new fad in town. Zelensky says Russia has not achieved any victory.
Russia did not achieve any victory. Our fighters have done well, people have done well. I am once again grateful to them for this. As for financial assistance, we are working very hard on it. I am sure that the United States of America will not betray us and that what we have achieved with the United States will be fulfilled.
So Zelensky is betting on the US. It is a risky bet. American senators say aid will not be approved before the new year. The US House is already on holiday. So this winter will be tough. Which brings us to the peace deal. Is there one on the table? Zelensky proposed a 10-point formula last year. And the key points were this. Russia must withdraw all its soldiers. Russia must respect Ukraine's borders. Europe must guarantee Kiev's future security, and Russian soldiers must be tried for war crimes. But for Putin, it's a non-starter. He will never agree to these terms. So the question is, will Zelensky make some concessions now? He proposed a peace plan in August last year, but 2 months later, he signed a new decree. He outlawed any negotiations with Putin. This was after Russia formally annexed Ukrainian land. So last year he was not game, but 2023 has been a year of setbacks for him. Could that force Zelensky's hand? The Kremlin says the West won't let it happen. And that's right. Moscow claims Britain asked Kiev to withdraw from the peace talks. It's a massive allegation. Britain asked Kiev to withdraw from the peace talks. Neither Kiev nor London has reacted yet, but it's a big claim to make. And if true, it is a problem because Zelensky will negotiate only if the West wants him to, only if they pressure him. And which Western leader will do that? Some do appear interested, like French President Emmanuel Macron. He says he would still take calls from the Russian president.
If President Putin has a willingness to engage in dialogue and serious proposals to move forward and emerge from the conflict and build a lasting peace, that is to say one that respects international law and therefore Ukrainian interests and sovereignty, I'll take the call and will spare no effort to obtain a result.
It will be a test of leadership. Putin has elections coming up in March 2024. He will win, no doubt. But how does he want to start his next term? As a wartime leader or with a fresh start? Same with Zelensky. He always knew that he couldn't win this war, but now he could lose it. So both Putin and Zelensky have many factors to weigh, like legacy, politics, strategy. If they stick to the battlefield, there will be only one winner. And that's how wars work. But if they negotiate, more possibilities open up. We'll have to wait and see what they choose. In the United States, a new twist in the presidential race. Donald Trump has been disqualified from the election. This is a court order, the Supreme Court of Colorado, a western state in America. The court has said that Donald Trump cannot run for office. He is not eligible. And so he's been disqualified from the state ballot. Does that mean that Trump cannot run for president? Well, the answer is no. The ruling only applies to the state of Colorado, but it will hurt his chances. It may also influence other such cases against him. And he plans to appeal it. So let me break this down for you. This case is about the Capitol riots of 2021. The court called it an insurrection, meaning a violent uprising against a government or an authority. That's what an insurrection is. And the court said that Trump was involved in this. Now, this was a 4-3 verdict, so basically a slim majority. The ruling cites Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the US Constitution. It is a provision from the Civil War era. It's also known as the Insurrection Clause. It says anyone involved in an insurrection, anyone involved in a violent uprising against the government will be banned from holding public office. Since the court believes that Donald Trump was involved, he's been banned. Now, this provision has been used before in the US, but never against a president or a former president. So that's another first for Donald Trump. Which brings us to the second question here. What does this ruling mean for Trump and his party? To understand this, you must understand the American electoral system. It's not like the one we have here in India or the UK. It's a presidential race. The first part is called the primaries, where each party votes for their candidate. They choose their presidential candidate by vote. And then you have the final election between the candidates of both parties. Now, this ruling applies only to the state of Colorado, to the state primary election. It is scheduled for the 5th of March. That's when Republican voters in Colorado will choose their presidential candidate. Donald Trump's name won't be on the ballot in his state. So how is he reacting to this? Trump has called the ruling, and I'm quoting, undemocratic. Other Republican leaders have also slammed it. They've called it a scheme of the Democrats.
It's no wonder crooked Joe Biden and the far-left lunatics are desperate to stop us by any means necessary. They are willing to violate the U.S. Constitution at levels never seen before in order to win this election. Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. It's a threat. They're weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference because we're beating them so badly in the polls.
Trump will appeal this in the US Supreme Court, and it's hard to predict what the court will say, but this is a court with a conservative majority. 3 of these judges were appointed by Trump himself. So it is believed that they may be sympathetic to his cause. But what if they're not? What if they uphold the Colorado order? In pure numbers, it should not bother Trump. And I'll explain why. Traditionally, Colorado is a Democratic-leaning state. In 2016, Trump lost Colorado to Hillary Clinton. In 2020, he lost the state to Joe Biden. So Colorado is technically inconsequential for him. Trump was never going to win it anyway. The worry is the precedent it sets. What if other states follow this trend? Colorado has already ripped the Band-Aid, and others are watching this closely. If similar lawsuits are filed in, say, swing states, the likes of Michigan and Minnesota, the states that can go either way, that is why they're called swing states, then it would worry Trump and his party. Having said that, Donald Trump has a unique ability, a way to turn legal losses into election wins. He's already polling higher than all other Republican candidates, and according to a new poll today, Trump is tied with Biden at 44%. He's also wiped out Biden's lead with Latino voters, and that's saying something. Because Joe Biden is the incumbent. He has all the advantage. Incumbent presidents in America are usually on a solid footing. But this one won't be an easy battle. Trump is going to use legal troubles to turbocharge his campaign, and elections are still 11 months away. A lot could happen in this time. A clear lead for Trump or an end to his campaign. And speaking of campaigns, there's a slow burner unfolding in Pakistan, a strange election with an even stranger strategy. Politicians are having a sudden change of heart towards India. It's like the 9th wonder of the world. Most Pakistani politicians are two trick ponies. They listen to the army and they blame India. That's all that they do. But former Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is trying a different strategy. He says, don't blame India. Pakistan's troubles are its own creation. Listen to this.
अपने मुल्क को खुद आज इस नुक्ते पे हम लेके आए हैं. किसी और का कसूर नहीं है. ये हिंदुस्तान ने हमारे खिलाफ नहीं किया. ये को अमेरिका ने हमारे खिलाफ नहीं किया. इनको अफगानिस्तान ने हमारे खिलाफ नहीं किया, ये हमने खुद किया, अपने पाँव पे खुद कुल्हाड़ा मारा है हमने.
He's right. You can't blame India for Pakistan's current situation. But what explains Sharif's honesty? Is he extending an olive branch to India? Well, he can't just yet. Pakistan's elections are due in February. Candidates have started filing nomination papers. Sharif himself is expected to file his tomorrow. He will likely contest from Mansehra, a city in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. It's a Sharif stronghold. But here's the fun fact. Technically, Nawaz Sharif cannot contest the election. He was given a lifelong ban by the Supreme Court of Pakistan. That ban is yet to be reversed. Yes, some of his jail sentences were overturned, but that ban still remains. So how will Nawaz Sharif contest? Such technicalities don't seem to bother Pakistan's political parties. Look at Imran Khan and his party, the PTI, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. The PTI says Imran Khan will contest from 3 seats: Lahore, Islamabad and Mianwali. How about that? Imran Khan is currently in jail. He too has a lifelong ban on contesting elections, but his party is filing papers from 3 seats. Tells you the state of Pakistan's politics. But let's assume for a moment that Nawaz Sharif contests, he wins, and he also becomes Prime Minister. Will he keep saying good things about India? Well, that depends on the Pakistan army. Has Pakistan's army then told Nawaz Sharif to change his tone, to sweet talk India? If it has, it could signal a policy change, a possible outreach to India. And frankly, it is a possibility that the army has told him to do this. I'll tell you why. Nawaz Sharif has not suddenly started sweet talking India. It's been a trend. He started while he was still in exile in London. He continued at his first rally after returning. And since then, he's been unstoppable. Every time Sharif gets a mic, he talks about India. Take a look at this.
आज हिंदुस्तान चांद पे चला गया है, G20 की मीटिंग्स वहां होती हैं. ये तो सब कुछ हमें करना चाहिए था. वाजपेयी साहब जब वजीर आजम बने तो $1 बिलियन हिंदुस्तान के खजाने में नहीं था, लेकिन आज उनके पास $600 बिलियन जो है ना, वो कहां से आ गया. हम अपना हमसायों के साथ लड़ाई करके, दुनिया के साथ अच्छा ताल्लुक करके तरक्की नहीं कर सकते. हमारे दौर में इंडिया के 2 वजीर आजम यहाँ पाकिस्तान तशरीफ लाए, मोदी साहब और वाजपेयी साहब. इससे पहले कब कभी कोई आया था. अब अपने मामलात को हमें इंडिया के साथ भी ठीक करना है, अपने मामलात को हमने अफगानिस्तान के साथ भी ठीक करना है, हमने अपने मामलात को ईरान के साथ भी मजबूत करना है.
If the army disagreed, they would and could have stopped him. They could have said, stop praising India, but clearly they haven't. And why is that? Well, Pakistan is chasing resets around the world. This week, the army chief was in the United States. He met top US officials like Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken. And today, the army released a statement. Let me quote from what they've said. The army chief said that Pakistan wishes to develop itself as a hub of connectivity and a gateway to Central Asia and beyond. However, it wants to eschew bloc politics and believes in maintaining balanced relationships with all friendly countries. Just a reminder, Pakistan is saddled with Chinese loans. It is often called a Chinese province, a vassal state of Beijing. Now, that same Pakistan wants to avoid bloc politics. In other words, it wants to repair relations with the West. We've explained the reasons before. Pakistan needs bailouts from global institutions, institutions where the US can help. Hence the reset. But does that reset also extend to India? Logically, it should. India is the new engine of global growth, the 5th largest economy. So India's prosperity will rub off on neighbors, especially neighbors who want to be a regional transit hub. Imagine the benefits for Pakistan. But the question is, are they genuine? Nawaz Sharif has tried to repair relations before. He was Prime Minister when a bus route was opened from Delhi to Lahore. In 2014, he attended Prime Minister Modi's inauguration. The next year, Modi returned the favour by attending Sharif's granddaughter's wedding. So the two leaders are familiar, but every time the military has spoiled Sharif's plans. In 1999, they launched the Kargil War. In 2017, he was convicted in a corruption case. So will this time be any different? Only if the army supports him. Of course, India's red lines and position are clear. Terror and talks do not go hand in hand. If progress is made on that front, who knows? Maybe a reset is on the cards. Let's turn to India's eastern border and look at the crisis in Myanmar. Rebel forces continue to make gains there. Reports say they've taken another checkpoint on the China-Myanmar border. It's in the Kokang self-administered region in Myanmar's northeastern Shan state. Now, the entire region is reportedly in rebel hands. If true, this is another setback for Myanmar's military junta and a major victory for the rebel forces. But these rebel victories also come at a price. The arms and ammunition needed to fight the junta do not come for free. So what is their source of funding? Drugs. New reports are out. They say Myanmar is the world's opium capital, and the production of meth is surging, which poses a new challenge for neighbors like India. Here's a report.
We all know that what's happening in the country since the military takeover in February 2021, an ongoing conflict, governance challenges, worsening economic situations, that all have contributed to the increases in opium poppy cultivation and engagement of farming of opium by farmers.
That was an officer from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. He says opium production is on the rise in Myanmar. And this has been the case since the military junta deposed Myanmar's democratically elected government in 2021. The UN Drug Office has released its annual report, and it says Myanmar has overtaken Afghanistan as the world's top opium producer. The UN report says Myanmar's opium economy was worth 2 to 4% of its GDP last year. It's estimated at $2.5 billion. There was an 18% increase in opium production in Myanmar between 2022 and 2023. And they expect it to rise further next year. It's not just opium. Myanmar has steadily become a hub for other drugs as well, especially methamphetamines, known locally as yaba or crazy pills. The production of these drugs has surged in Myanmar's Shan state. It lies in what's known as the Golden Triangle, Southeast Asia's major drug-producing region. The drugs produced in Myanmar make their way across the Asia-Pacific. They are smuggled through Thailand or other neighboring countries, and they enter the global black market. In the last 2 weeks, major drug busts have taken place near the Thailand-Myanmar border. Last week, the Thai police seized 50 million meth tablets. 50 million. It's a record bust in Thailand. This week, there was another seizure. 2 million tablets this time. They were recovered after the Thai police shot down suspected drug smugglers. And Thailand isn't the only country these drugs pass through. Take India, for instance. Reports say hundreds of people in India's northeast have been arrested for drug-related crimes this year. Some have been Myanmar nationals. Others are Indians who have been aiding the cross-border drug trade. Myanmar's rebel offensive that began in October has sparked more fears. People from Myanmar are making their way to India as refugees. Local authorities worry that this will lead to a rise in drug trafficking.
We can see that increasingly sophisticated farming practice in Myanmar over the last few years, that resulting in the record opium yield per hectare, 22.9 kilograms, which is again 65% increase compared to just 2 years ago.
There's a reason for this. Before the 2021 coup, opium production in Myanmar was going down. But the junta takeover set off fresh waves of resistance among Myanmar's various ethnic groups. Clashes between the junta and the rebel groups led to instability in the far regions of the country. And some people began turning to opium farming again to make a living. That's one part of it, the unorganized part. But it isn't the only reason drug production is up. Organized criminal elements took advantage of the military takeover to boost drug production as well. The Shan state is the major drug production region in Myanmar. This is overseen by some rebel groups in the region. They negotiated with the junta after the military took over, promised to refrain from fighting in exchange for autonomy, and then they proceeded to ramp up drug production. They've used this to fund the latest offensive against the junta. Does this mean the junta is better when it comes to the Myanmar drug problem? No. Junta troops have also been implicated in the drug trade. So it's a complicated situation where almost no one's hands are clean.
Our next story is about chocolate. No, we don't want to talk about the recently released Wonka movie, but rather chocolate's chief component, cocoa. Chocolate is derived from cocoa beans. These are grown in various tropical countries, but two of them stand out. Two countries in West Africa, the Ivory Coast and Ghana. More than 60% of the world's cocoa is grown in these two countries, the Ivory Coast and Ghana. These are the cocoa powerhouses of the world. But this year, they're in crisis. Abnormal weather has hit cocoa production, and this is causing a surge in prices. Let me show you the numbers from November 30th. Cocoa futures were trading at a 46-year high. What does that mean? In simple words, it will sell at a 46-year high in the future at a predetermined time. And why are the prices up? Because shipments are down. From the Ivory Coast, supply has fallen by 33% compared to last year, and Ghana shipments are down to a 13-year low. This is not expected to get better next year. So what is leading to these low production levels? Heavy rainfall. Listen to this.
When the cocoa was blooming, we had too much rain, so all the flowers were washed away. That's it. Cocoa doesn't like too much rain. It likes the rain, but not too much of it. If it rains too much when the tree is flowering, it washes everything away, and then the campaign fails just like that.
Last month, both the Ivory Coast and Ghana saw unusually heavy rains caused by the weather phenomenon called the El Niño. It's a natural weather pattern. It occurs every few years. It leads to excess rainfall around the equator. But in recent years, the El Niño has been worse than usual. And that's because of climate change. The more global warming humans cause, the more powerful the El Niño becomes. This year has been especially bad, and it has led to severe rainfall in the chocolate belt of West Africa. The rains were destructive enough by themselves, but they also brought another problem: disease.
Last year's production and this year's production are not the same. This year what we picked didn't even fill a whole bag. Because of the rains, the berries were rotten.
This is called the black pod disease, a plague that hit the cocoa crop in West Africa. As the name suggests, it causes cocoa pods to turn black and rotten. And it's a double whammy. It hits the quantity of the cocoa harvest. It also affects the quality. And it's one of the major reasons why there's a cocoa deficit this year. But this is just one part of the problem. There are many other factors at play. Like in the case of Ghana, it's illegal mining. Ghana is a country rich in natural resources like gold. This year, Ghana ranked at number 6 when it came to gold production. But almost a third of this was from small mines. Mines operated illegally by small-scale diggers. These small illegal mines are popping up everywhere in the country, even in Ghana's cocoa plantations, and this is causing a fall in production. Because gold is any day more lucrative than cocoa. So farmers allow it. They support illegal mines on their land. Now, this has been going on for years, but recently there's been a surge in illegal mining because Ghana is going through an economic crisis. It defaulted on its sovereign debt last year. The currency depreciated. In 2022, it fell by over 50% against the US dollar, and this year the fall continued. Meanwhile, inflation rose above 26% last month. So the citizens are suffering, including the cocoa farmers, and many of them are turning to illegal gold mining. The knock-on effect has exacerbated the global cocoa shortage. There's no quick solution to any of this. The El Niño will continue into the next year. Ghana's economic woes are not going away anytime soon, and this means cocoa, and by extension chocolate, will continue to get more expensive. So enjoy it this holiday season, because who knows how much a bar of chocolate will cost you next year. Shifting our focus to France, where President Macron is facing a rebellion. Today, the French parliament passed a new immigration bill. It is hardline, it is controversial, and it is dividing Macron's party. His health minister has already resigned. More resignations could follow, which leaves the French president in a bind. He has to take a tougher stance on immigration, like he promised during his re-election campaign, but he also needs to appease his party members. More resignations could mean more trouble. So what is this immigration bill and why is it dividing the French government? Our next report tells you.
France has passed a new bill. It comes after weeks of debate, compromise, political wrangling and concessions. It's still controversial and is now dividing the French government. The new law in question is a contentious immigration reform. The bill was in discussion for quite some time. It's gone through rounds of amendments. It was about toughening immigration rules, but some in Macron's party say it's gone too far. So what's the bill about? It allows reduced welfare benefits for foreigners, tougher rules for foreign students, and new migration quotas. It will now be more difficult for children of immigrants to become French citizens. Dual nationals who are found guilty of serious crimes will lose their French citizenship. Immigrants will find it harder to bring family into the country. Plus, it will also be easier to expel illegal migrants. The biggest surprise is social security benefits. France has one of the most generous welfare systems in the world. It grants payments to foreign residents, helping them pay rent or pay for childcare. These monthly payments could be up to €100. But now, these will stop for many. Welfare benefits will have terms and conditions. You can get it on 2 conditions. You have to live in France for at least 5 years, or you must be working in France for 30 months. So, how many people will it affect? France has a sizable migrant population. In 1946, it was around 5% of the population. In 2022, it's over 10% of the total population. That's around 2.5 million people. About a third have become French citizens. This new immigration bill was endorsed by Macron and his centrist Renaissance party. Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally also supported it. And this is where the chaos began. France's left-wing parties accused Macron of appeasing the right, of passing the bill that aligns with Le Pen's policies. Macron's party lost its majority in parliament last year, so for the bill to pass, he needed Le Pen. But many in his party say Macron has made far too many concessions that are now dividing his own party. 20 of his MPs voted against it, 17 abstained. That's almost a quarter of all his MPs. His health minister has resigned, and he may not be the last one. More resignations could weaken Macron's hold in parliament and his 5-year presidential mandate. He's now trying to pacify his lawmakers.
Tackling the theme of immigration was, as you know, a perilous mission. That's why we took our time, about a year in all. Immigration provokes a lot of fear, sometimes anger. It's the biggest divisive topic, which requires truths and counter-truths. It's the topic that should be tackled with utmost necessary thought, but that often radicalizes positions.
But France is not alone in this boat. Many countries in Europe are now opting for tougher migration policies. The European Union did it today. It will reshape its migration and asylum rules, limiting the number of incoming migrants. So what France is doing is no different from the rest of Europe. But this could mean trouble not just for migrants, but also for Emmanuel Macron.
Our next story comes from Japan, where a corporate behemoth has fallen. We're talking about the electronics giant Toshiba. Today, after 74 years, Toshiba was delisted from the Tokyo Stock Exchange. The company is no longer a publicly listed firm. Instead, it will now be a private company owned by a consortium led by Japan Industrial Partners, or JIP. It's a private equity firm. JIP and its partners bought Toshiba in September for 2 trillion yen. That's about $14 billion, and the consortium took Toshiba private today. But how did it come to this? Toshiba was a Japanese powerhouse, a 150-year-old company. How did it fall from grace? It's a story about bad luck, worse management, and external interference. It began in 2008 with the global financial crisis. That's the bad luck part. Like most other firms, Toshiba was hit by the Great Recession. But unlike others, Toshiba did not deal with the setback honestly. Instead of reporting losses, its CEO wanted to show profits. So the company indulged in accounting malpractices. This is where the worst management comes in. For 8 years, Toshiba overstated its operating profits. This was to the tune of $1.2 billion. And this went on till 2015. That's when the accounting scandal came to light. It went public. And it shook public faith in the company. 3 successive CEOs oversaw this scandal. Do you know what the investigation says? These CEOs did not directly ask anyone to cook the books. They just put pressure on their subordinates. And Japan's corporate culture did the rest. It produced the tainted results. This investigation and this scandal was also an indictment of Japanese work culture. It showed how workers are completely obedient to their superiors, how they would go to any lengths to deliver results, including cooking the books. This reeks of bad corporate governance and a lack of safeguards. But the story does not end there. After the scandal came to light in 2015, Toshiba said it would change. And that should have been that. But the very next year, bad luck would strike again. In 2016, Toshiba took a gamble. Its US subsidiary pledged to construct a power plant. It would cost about $7 billion. But later that year, the subsidiary went bankrupt. It left Toshiba holding the bill. So they had a $7 billion loss on their hands, and this caused their share prices to tank. Toshiba then went into damage control mode, selling off prized assets to stem the bleeding. It sold its mobile phone business, also the medical systems, but it wasn't enough. So the company still needed a bailout, and it got one in 2017 from foreign investors, which is where the third problem began: external interference. You see, Toshiba is a 150-year-old Japanese company. It had its fingers in a slew of businesses, from electronics to power to infrastructure. It was once considered a critical asset by the Japanese government. So it was given plenty of leeway by domestic shareholders. But the 2017 cash injection came from overseas, and these investors had some expectations. They started demanding changes from the Japanese management. This led to a power struggle. Then the Japanese government allegedly got involved. Japan's trade ministry colluded with Toshiba to suppress the foreign investors, and this led to more external interference and more chaos at Toshiba. The company never recovered from all of this. It eventually decided to opt for a buyout, and that's how we're here today, with Toshiba going private. And there are lessons to learn from this saga. Chief among them is honesty. Bad times will hit every company. The balance sheet will look bad sometimes, but shady accounting is not the solution. Sooner or later, you will get caught. And the fallout can even bury a centuries-old organization. Our next story is about artificial intelligence. AI can drive your car, it can also do your homework, and now it can even play fortune teller. That's right. With every new day, there is a new job that AI is good at. Now, scientists have developed a groundbreaking AI model. It has been trained with life stories of millions of people, and now it can predict the future. It can tell individuals how much money they will make, how their health will turn out, and even when they will die. Here's a report.
Do you believe in fortune telling, or is it just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo to you? If you answered yes, then let us ask you, do you believe in hard data? What if you could scientifically predict the future? Because now you can get the best of both worlds with artificial intelligence. Scientists have developed a groundbreaking AI model. It is called Life2Vec. It works like ChatGPT, where the user can put in a query and the AI responds. Life2Vec has been trained on life stories of over 6 million people. Essentially, health and labor market data, which told the AI model crucial information about people, like where they studied, how well they performed educationally, how many doctor's visits they took, if they were admitted to the hospital, if they have any illnesses, and what their current occupation and income are. All of this provided the AI model with enough personal data to go on, And now, Life2Vec can predict the future. It can understand users' personality types, predict their health in the future, what income they would earn, even when they would die, or if they're at risk of an early death. According to scientists, predicting life is much like understanding a language for the technology. Here's why. Human life is a long sequence of events. How and why they connect can tell someone a lot about one's life. This is similar to how language works. Each sentence has a series of words and a structure. For AI, language or codes are of utmost importance, and it uses the same mechanism to help with fortune telling. Which is fascinating, not because Life2Vec is the first AI to do so. There are several artificial intelligence tools that can predict things, like illnesses. What sets Life2Vec apart is how accurately it does so. It's more efficient than other similar AI systems. Its predictions are 11% more accurate than others. The issue here, like that with any other AI model, is of misuse. Scientists too have issued a word of caution. This AI model could be used by insurance companies. The entire idea of insurance is the lack of knowledge about unfortunate situations like accidents or deaths. If insurance companies can predict health concerns among consumers, or when they would die, companies may use it to their benefit, especially to price their policies, which raises major ethical concerns. So, like most things AI, guardrails are important. Unfortunately, tech is moving faster than policy making. But with the right rules and guidelines, Life2Vec could be a useful tool. The only question is, if you could take a peek into the future, would you?
Your company is interested in your body. If it sounds creepy, that's probably because it is. Except I'm only talking about your health. Your company wants to know all about it. So let me ask you this. Does your company run a fitness program? Have you been asked to download a health monitoring app? Are you made to wear a fitness tracker or patch? If the answer is yes, welcome to the club of constant health surveillance. This is a rapidly growing phenomenon in the workplace. Workforce health is a valuable source of intelligence. Wear a sleek health monitor on your wrist and your company can scoop up volumes of highly sensitive data, like how many steps you walk, where you cover the distance, what is your heart rate, how much or when you sleep, even how well you sleep. Imagine taking a fake sick leave, but your boss finding out that you walked 15,000 steps that day. As I said, it's creepy, and in this case, maybe even funny. But that's just this case. Ideally, employees voluntarily sign up for this monitoring. They're lured by cash or reduced premiums on insurance. For instance, IBM offers $150 if workers meet health targets. United Healthcare offers $1,500 a year in reimbursements on health benefit plans. But then, some company policies give others a run for their money, quite literally. It happened in China recently. A Chinese company replaced its year-end bonus with a health reward system, where your bonus will depend on how much you run. If you run 50 kilometers a month, you get the full bonus, worth a month's salary. Any lesser running, and the bonus reduces. But if you manage to hit the 100-kilometer mark in a month, you get 130% of the bonus. Now, critics say this plan is using bonuses as a bargaining chip, where the staff has to work twice as much to earn the same bonus. But according to the company, this policy will promote healthy lifestyles. After all, more active workers have higher productivity. Regular exercise can improve memory and reduce stress, so it's a win-win situation. Workers are healthier and companies benefit from their increased performance. Plus, they get to keep insurance costs down. The idea is laudable, and it has picked up. A decade ago, about 2,000 companies offered fitness trackers. By 2014, this rose to 10,000. And today, the global corporate wellness market is worth $53 billion. Most companies with over 500 employees offer such trackers, especially in America and Europe. But despite this boom, let me ask the golden question. Does monitoring employees actually help? Do such programs work? The evidence is mixed at best. Most studies say they do not help. There's only so much money one can offer that will make you unwillingly run for hours after work. And that's not the only problem here. Let's assume most companies have a genuine concern for employees. Even so, this is a major privacy issue, also an ethical one. Should your employer be able to track your sleep? Should they be invading your private life? Also, does your boss really need to make you a better person? Not everyone is comfortable with the idea, because they rarely know where the data goes or how it is used. What if employees with health conditions are denied promotions? What if your data is sold to insurance companies? So many questions. Not enough clarity, except on one point perhaps. When it comes to wellness plans, companies have a fine line to tread. They have to boost employee health without crossing an ethical boundary. It helps to have an independent third party on board perhaps, so an outsider can track employee data under heavy privacy guidelines. Also, employees need a healthier workplace. They need a better work-life balance, not a pedometer around their wrist. After all, who needs bosses tracking their every move? People already have social media for that. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In Iceland, skies turned orange after a volcanic eruption. In Peru, police are using the holiday spirit to educate people about traffic laws. They swapped their police uniforms for Santa costumes. And freezing temperatures turned boiling water into ice crystals in China. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1989, the United States invaded Panama. It was ordered by President George H.W. Bush. The mission was to overthrow military dictator Manuel Noriega. He later surrendered and was flown to the US. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Estoy ocupado.
Fuerte los aplausos. ¡Eso! ¡Fuerte los aplausos!